Case 1. Janet Wolf. Janet was just a kid when her father died, and she saw professional wrestling as her ticket out of a town of 300 people. When she met promoter Billy Wolf, he offered her a world of bright lights and travel. Her mother signed the papers, trusting this man to be a daddy to her daughter. But the industry didn't want a daughter. It wanted a machine. Janet's entire professional career lasted exactly 6 weeks. On a humid night in Ohio in 1951, she took a hard body slam during her first match of the evening. She went back to the locker room, complaining that her head felt like it was splitting open. An experienced wrestler told her to stay down, to admit she had a concussion. But Janet was terrified. In the 1950s, if you didn't work, you didn't eat. She went back out for the main event. While standing on the apron, her knees simply gave way. She was unconscious before her head hit the floor. The autopsy found a blood clot that had been growing for a week. She had been fighting while her brain was slowly filling with pressure. She has no Hall of Fame, no tribute, and no memorial. Just a quiet grave in a town that most people can't find on a map. Her death becomes a footnote in a federal investigation, a reminder of an era where being hurt was a forbidden admission. Case 2. Sherry Martel. Sherry Martel was a force of nature. She wore wild, jagged face paint and screamed until her vocal cords felt like raw meat. She was the woman who stood behind the biggest icons in history, from the Heartbreak Kid to the Macho Man. To the fans, she was indestructible, a sensational powerhouse who could handle anyone. But when the 1990s ended, the industry didn't have a place for a woman who wasn't a 20-something model. She went from the largest stadiums in the world to small-town high school gyms, still painting her face, still trying to find that old spark for a fraction of the pay. The transition from superstar to ordinary citizen is a violent one. In June 2007, the storm finally stopped. She was staying at her mother's house in Alabama, a world away from the pyrotechnics and the travel schedules. She went to sleep in the quiet of a normal neighborhood and never woke up. The toxicology report was a familiar list for those in the business, a lethal mixture of painkillers, specifically a massive amount of oxycodone. She was 49. She had spent her entire life building legacies for others, only to have her own story end in a quiet room while the rest of the world was waking up for work. Her journey from the main event of WrestleMania to the quiet of her mother's spare bedroom illustrates the wrestler's curse that lingers long after the crowd stops roaring. Case 3. Chyna. Joan Marie Laura, known as Chyna, didn't just break the glass ceiling, she smashed it. At the No Mercy pay-per-view on October 17, 1999, she made history by defeating Jeff Jarrett in his final match for the company to win the Intercontinental Championship. She was the first, and remains the only, woman to ever hold that title, eventually winning it a second time and proving she was a top-tier draw. But the Red Sea parted for her in 2001, after discovering a secret letter that revealed a betrayal at the highest level of the company. She was taken off television and effectively erased. For over a decade, she was a ghost. Her name was blocked from the Hall of Fame because she had turned to adult films to survive when the wrestling checks stopped coming. On an April night in 2016, she posted a YouTube video titled, "Wake Up." She filmed the ocean from her window, made a green smoothie, and told the camera how lucky she felt. She posted a picture of patterned socks on Instagram and went to bed. 3 days passed before anyone checked on her. The smell of the apartment reached her manager before he even saw her body or the loose pills on the carpet. She was 46. The ninth wonder of the world was found in her apartment after days of silence. Her legacy tied to a forbidden past that the industry refused to forgive. She was finally inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2019, but only as part of a group, never as the individual powerhouse who changed the world. Her final video remains a haunting goodnight to a world that had moved on without her. Case 4. Ashley Massaro. Ashley Massaro was the dream come true. She beat out 7,000 other women to win a $250,000 contract on national television. She was the girl next door with a model's smile, but the ring was a brutal teacher. She suffered a spiral fracture in her leg and was pushed back onto television before the bone had even finished knitting together. Surgeons had to go back in when a screw worked its way loose. But the physical pain wasn't the worst part. In 2006, during a trip to a military base in Kuwait, Ashley reported that she was drugged and assaulted by a man claiming to be a doctor. When she brought this to the executives, she was told to stay quiet. She was told that speaking up would hurt the company's relationship with the military. Thus, she found herself caught between a lucrative contract and a harrowing secret that she was forced to keep for over a decade to protect the company. So, she kept the forbidden secret. She carried that weight through her retirement and into a lawsuit about brain injuries years later. In May 2019, she answered her final batch of fan mail, posted a photo of the letters, and went silent. She was 39. The military investigation into her assault didn't even begin until 8 days after she had passed away. Her story only truly came to light through a sworn statement that remained sealed until after her life had reached a tragic conclusion. Case 5. Daphne. Shannon Spruill was the Scream Queen, a gothic icon who wasn't afraid of the hardcore side of wrestling. She took the kind of bumps that make a crowd gasp. Landing on thumbtacks, falling through tables, hitting the cold floor again and again. But the language of violence has a high cost. By the time she reached her mid-40s, the lights in her mind were beginning to flicker. She had suffered countless concussions, the kind of invisible damage that builds up like silt in a river. In September 2021, she went live on Instagram. She wasn't playing a character. She was crying, holding a firearm, and talking about how foggy her brain had become. She begged for her brain to be sent to the Concussion Legacy Foundation. She wanted her death to be a map for others to follow. She was found in her home the next morning. She was 46. Unlike the older generations who died in silence, Daphne used her final moments to scream about the forbidden reality of head trauma, forcing a massive, uncomfortable conversation about the mental health of every person who steps into the ring. Her death forced the industry to look into the fog of concussions that many performers were trained to ignore. Case 6. Sarah Lee. Sarah Lee was the girl next door who won the hearts of the fans. She was a competitive powerlifter who won a reality show and a massive contract. But the dream was a hollow one. She spent 13 months in a training center, never appearing in a single televised match, before her contract was simply allowed to expire. She left the business, got married to a fellow wrestler, and had 3 children. On social media, she looked like she was thriving. She was back in the gym, posting photos of her progress, looking like the backbone of her family. But in October 2022, that backbone finally snapped. She was found unresponsive at the age of 30. The medical examiner eventually ruled that it wasn't an accident. She had left letters behind. Words for her children and her husband that explain a pain the world never saw. Her husband wrote an open letter to her after she was gone, calling her an angel who was finally free. The mother of 3 and a former reality star passed away just as she seemed to be reclaiming her life, leaving behind letters of intent that the public was never meant to read. She was a woman who won a dream contract only to realize that the industry is a machine that often leaves you with nothing but a shattered sense of self. She was only 30 years old, and her youngest child was just a year old when the lights went out for the last time. Her passing stands as a modern reminder that the pressure to be perfect for the cameras can hide a crushing internal weight.